Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Jada Soleil. And Jada has this question. How do you properly deconstruct and deactivate an altar or a sacred space? And she asks about this particularly in reference to several situations. One of them is taking your altar down temporarily. Another is taking it down to move. Another is merging two existing altars. Another is if you're modifying or changing your spiritual practice. And indeed, these might have different considerations. She also asks, what do you do with sacred figures and or sacred tools that no longer fit your spiritual path and therefore you no longer wish to keep or use? And my answer to this is that all of these things are going to have one thing in common, and that is the energetics of the situation. It's all, in my opinion, about the energy and how you work with that energy in terms of decommissioning an altar or a sacred space. If you're taking it down temporarily, for example, to clean it, or because you have family coming who you don't want to see it, or any other reason, but you're going to put it back up where it was, I don't think it's really a big operation. You don't necessarily want to disturb the basic energy. You just want to take it down, do what you need to do. And when you put it back, you may want to recharge or even reconsecrate the pieces, but I don't think you need to worry too much about the actual energy of the sacred space itself, because this is only a temporary disturbance. What you might wish to do is explain to the altar itself what is about to be done before you do it, but I don't think you need to worry too much about the actual energy of the place. If, on the other hand, you're moving residents, or you're moving the altar to another room or another part of the room, and where it was will not be used for an altar in the future, you want to make sure that you clear and ground that energy that has built up through using that altar, particularly if you're moving and leaving the space to someone else who may not understand anything about energy. You don't want to leave that there because they will not know what it is or how to cope with it. And depending on how much energy we're talking about, it could cause them issues. So you want to clear out and ground the energy of that sacred space in a respectful manner. You may want to make a thank offering to the space for having been used. It could be as simple as lighting a candle and making a small prayer. It could be incense. It could be more complex. That's up to you. But I would recommend perhaps a thank offering and clearing and releasing that energy and thoroughly grounding it out. And then where the new altar is being put, you would basically set it up from scratch, cleansing and consecrating the area. You might want to recharge and reconsecrate the things going on the altar, although I would play that by ear and feel the energy itself, and basically just set it back up again. Now, what if you're merging two altars? In my opinion, it would be basically the same thing. If one of them is leaving an empty space, you want to clear and ground that energy. In fact, I would say do that for both altars and start from scratch and cleanse and consecrate your new altar area, even if it was formerly one of the two altars, and rebuild the altar as one in that newly consecrated space. Again, you may want to recharge or reconsecrate the things you're putting on it, or you may not. See how they feel energetically, play it by ear. That would be my suggestion. The next scenario, if you're modifying or changing your spiritual path, that's a little bigger. If you're drastically changing the purpose and nature of the altar, you want to ground out the energy of everything. You want to, in my opinion, totally remove the existing energy and again, start from scratch. You want to clear and release all the energy. You want to reconsecrate. Anything new going on the altar should be consecrated. Anything old going back on it should be reconsecrated if it has a different purpose now. So basically you would be starting from scratch. And that's basically what I would say for dealing with the altars. Now, what about when you have a sacred statue or tool that you no longer have a use for? What do you do with it? How do you properly dispose of it? And I would say this depends in part on your personal situation. In some cases, there may be a person who you may want to pass it to, in which case, depending on what it is, you may or may not want to clear out and ground out that energy. In some cases, you may want to pass it on as it is, particularly if it's been used for group worship. Or you may prefer not to do that, in which case, like all these other things, you cleanse out, ground out that energy, and break those energetic bonds. And before doing that, there should be a thank offering, at least in the form of a thank you prayer to the image or tool, before sending it on its way, and before clearing out that energy. It's always good to thank the things that you have used, and also to let them know what's happening, because they have a spiritual component, obviously, or we would not be having this conversation. And they may not be perfectly well aware of what's happening, but it's good for you to explain it. If you have no one to pass it to, or don't feel appropriate about passing it to someone, even with the energy grounded out, what I would say is totally cleanse it of its energy, break any energetic connection to it, and at that point, it's merely a statue, merely an object. It has had the energetic aspect removed and cleansed, and then you can do what you want. If it's been really important, I would say that you should be more careful in what fate awaits it, but it's the energy, not the object, that makes the thing sacred, in my opinion. I think that as a community, however, it's good for us to have sacred objects that get passed on through generations. And I don't know that you necessarily want to cleanse the energy when you're trying to build that kind of generational connection. So if you do have people to pass it on to, I would not necessarily automatically cleanse out that energy. But if you don't know where it's going, if you're taking it to the thrift store, if you're doing something else with it, then by all means cleanse all of the energy, every little bit, and break every energetic connection that you have to it. And again, make sure to have thanked it, thank whatever deity or spirit it may have been connected to, in the case of a statue, and then do what you need to do. Some people might feel that it should be destroyed. I don't necessarily hold that view. I would say that it may have further purposes in its existence that it needs to go to. And for all you know, some other practitioner may go to that thrift store, pick it up, take it home, and make it back into a sacred image for their altar. But you don't want them taking your energy to do that. In that kind of scenario, you definitely want to cleanse all of the energy. On the other hand, if you are the presiding clergy of a temple and you're giving it to your successor or to one of your students, then you may not want to cleanse the energy. It depends on the situation. Also depends on your background. Some traditions have much more specific rules than this. And you would, of course, want to have reference to that. So these would be my answers. I hope you find them helpful. And until next time, may you blessed be.